Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. My name's Jack, and today is another LEGO Top 10 MOCs of the Week. This is our Sunday episode where basically I just look at some of the coolest creations, or as many of the cool creations as I can possibly find throughout the week. I choose my 10 favorite, and we just talk about them. This is a great way to discover new LEGO builders, and in general, people's capacity to be creative never really ceases to amaze me. Normally at the end of these episodes, if you guys stick around to the end, I show off you guys, the viewers, your fan MOC creations that you submit to me all day every week. And this particular Sunday, I'm actually splitting that second part of the episode into its own episode where I actually talk about your creations that you submit. That's not going to be set up in a sort of top 10 or a ranked system, so to speak, but instead just kind of talk about the cool and interesting and sort of strange sometimes builds that you guys submit. I get pictures from all different levels of builders throughout the week. So this fan MOC creations episode is going to be more about just having fun and just taking a closer look at some of the cool stuff that you guys send in. I get a lot of descriptions from you guys, and there's a lot of sort of fun backstory sometimes that you include. So anyways, this is really just gonna be for fun with the intended purpose of just showcasing and supporting builders like yourselves. So this next episode is gonna premiere tomorrow, and let me know what you guys think about this concept. I know it was requested, but I really wanna know sort of what you think. This is sort of a new episode idea for us, and it's kind of just a test run. So anyways, I feel like that is a long enough intro. Let's get into the first build of the week, number 10, and this is the Seraphim by Corvin Stichert. This is one massive brick-built jet, and it looks like it's made entirely or mostly of system bricks. I can't really see any Technic. There might be some on the inside, but I'm a really big fan of the building technique where you can see the builder has just turned the bricks on the side and built out a slightly thicker wing without using any plate pieces. I think that looks really good in the long run, and the jet is just massive, especially when you see it next to the minifigs. I don't know if this particular model exists in real life, but this is probably a pretty good example of how a modern fighter jet does scale to an actual person. It's really a very sleek design, like it a lot. Let's move on to number 9, and this is a build called Bosco Vertical Mark II by Elspeth de Montes. Now, we are not strangers to the micro scale city building here at the studio, and this is just an awesome example of one of those really cool sort of vertical hanging garden buildings. I believe there's a building like this in Singapore and possibly in other parts of the world where just about every outer edge of all the balconies is completely covered in greenery. It really makes for a unique looking building, and it looks awesome in this micro scaled format. I especially like that the eyes of Ender, those Minecraft tile pieces, have been used as solar panels at the top. That's a really fun creative thing. And by the way, the links to any of the builders' Flickrs are in the description below. If you want to learn more about or check out other cool designs from the same people, I highly recommend that, because it is all too often the case that the builds that you're looking at are really just sort of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a lot of the creative creations that these people are putting together. Number 8 now is just something I sort of had to do. It's a bit of good timing for this build. It is It by Tim Lydy, and of course we are looking at the most recent version of Pennywise that came out for this latest It movie, and this really is an awesome and super creepy bust that we have. Honestly, the shape of the face is really well built. The sort of poofy cheeks that we have at the bottom of Pennywise's face for this character are captured really well, in fact. And of course, this thing looks really, really creepy with the yellow eyes and the sharp teeth. But the shape of the head and the hair really does tie this whole thing together. Also, there's a Brickhead's version of Pennywise as well. And I'm definitely gonna have to see this movie at some point. Now, number 7 isn't just this steampunk version of the Louvre. I mean, this build is incredible, and this is the most recent version of his Paris Steampunk 1889 series. But we can't just look at this. This is a builder that I just recently discovered, and I haven't seen such a consistent and massive amount of builds all dedicated towards the same theme. And once we start getting sort of all of these giant buildings put together, we really do have an entire fantasy world built by Castor. Often his builds are loosely based on or somewhat modified versions from the creator modular sets, and then other ones are entirely new creations of his own design. I highly recommend that you guys go check out this ridiculous fantasy world that this builder has created. And let's jump on down to number 7, and number 7 is kind of a bunch of different builds. I think it is what is being called the Throne series, and the builder is Chris Captain. And here we have just a bunch of awesome, differently themed thrones. They're kind of all based on sort of the Iron Throne from Game of Thrones, with all the different sort of things sticking out the back, but instead of swords. They're all part of whatever theme that the character happens to be, sitting in the chair. My personal favorite chairs are the baby throne chair with all of the bottles in the back, and the Rockstar Batman throne with all of the different guitars thrown in there. They're really, really creative, and I hope we end up seeing more of the Throne series from this creator in the future. So moving down to number 5 on the list, this is something that was, I think, inevitable. I had a feeling that Lego Admiral was going to be building either Boba Fett or Jango Fett's helmet in the wearable fashion. And here we have Jango Fett's wearable Lego helmet. This is one of a series of different Star Wars wearable helmets, and this is awesome. This is, I think, my favorite so far. In order for the Lego to actually fit together, sometimes proportions have to be sacrificed somewhat in order for the helmet to be wearable, and the whole thing also not to just fall apart if you, breathe on it too hard. Here, I think the proportions are really good though, and the helmet actually works. There's quite a bit of complexity to the shape of the helmet, especially towards the front with the curves on either side. And don't quote me, but I feel like if you did want to make a Boba Fett version of the helmet, probably most of the colors that would fit the Boba Fett color scheme for the Mandalorian helmet would probably work. If you like life-size items from Star Wars being built out of Lego, Lego Admiral is definitely the guy to follow on Flickr. And now number 4 in the lineup is a build that I think has been making the rounds with a lot of different forums. This is the Koelbel building at CU Boulder, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, by the builder Imagine Rigney. Now the builder says the proportions are pretty darn close to the original, which doesn't necessarily concern me, but I really did have to look at this building on Google Images just to see the comparison with the extremely unique coloration that we have that makes up the entire outside of the building. And yeah, it looks like the original structure is made from a bunch of small stones that are kind of flat and yes, somewhat multicolored. It's an alternate look for what we would probably normally see as a brick building, but it does make this whole thing look very unique, and the Lego translated build really is awesome. I think it's a great building, and I cannot imagine how long this must have taken the original builder, because it looks like the walls are pretty much made of a bunch of 1x2 plate pieces. This looks like something that took many, many hours in the build room. Now this next build also has a lot of stacked plate pieces, but really it's an entirely unique kind of building technique, or at least completely different from the one we're just looking at. This is the Attack of the Dark Bluish Gray Pearl by Simon NH. Now I'm a big fan of pirate ships in Lego. It's one of the first themes that really got me passionate about the pieces, and I have never seen a ship built in quite the same style as the one that we're looking at right now. The hull is made of a bunch of what look like 1x2 plates, and not only does it allow the hull to move inward towards the front to make the point, but it also curves upwards to create sort of a really organic looking shape to the ship. Now, it probably doesn't close off at the bottom, and that's why it's sort of sunk halfway into the sea, but at the end of the day, that just makes it look more realistic in terms of how it's actually displayed. And we also have another fun, interesting way that the sails were built. They're totally together, but obviously quite tattered. And I like how there's a bit of sort of slope pieces built onto it to look like there's a little bit of wind pushing into parts of the sail. And then instead of having this whole thing totally tiled over and really smooth, the builder chose to leave in a lot of studs, and it just adds to the overall weathered effect. Now, I really like this ship, and if you want to see sort of new or interesting, strange building techniques that you've probably never seen anywhere else, I really highly recommend you checking out Simon NH's Flickr. Just about every time I check out his photo stream personally, I see something new that I have never seen before. Now, number 2 has an awesome title. It actually reads, "Such a peaceful and quiet play." Oh wait, By Milan Sekiz. Now I think the reasoning behind this title is that down below we've got a very sort of serene and picturesque look at a sort of micro scale rolling green hills and trees, and there's a little nice cottage. But lo and behold, the cottage is in mid-explosion, not having just been exploded or about to be exploded, but it is in the process of actually erupting into a fireball. And this is happening because we have one massive tripod that, unfortunately for the people down below, has rested its sights down on this little wooden house. Now, I love micro scale builds. I love builds that have a sort of suspended motion, like a build that looks like something is in mid-explosion or mid-falling. And who doesn't love a good old tripod? Now, for my number 1 pick, there might be some biases behind this because I absolutely love the show, The Expanse, and I have been waiting for the day that somebody was going to build the Rocinante, and that day has come. And the final look at this ship for Shiptember has wildly exceeded my expectations as to what somebody could actually do when pulling off the shape. This is not an easy ship to put together, even though it doesn't look like it's that sort of crazy at first glance, but there's a lot of different sort of hexagonal, octagonal shapes that all need to match up in certain ways. And from a technical standpoint, Julie VanderMeulen, the builder, has pulled off something that, I mean, I just never imagined would look quite as good in LEGO as this particular version of the Rocinante does now. The proportions look darn near exact, and it really is a thing of beauty to see so many of these sort of harshly angled flat areas of the ship matching up perfectly at each corner. And with that, I think that's going to be the end of the episode. Really awesome builds this week for the top 10 creations. I recommend checking out the description below if you want to learn more about any of these builders, and stick around for tomorrow's episode. This is going to be your submissions, the fan mock builds. This is the first time we've done an episode like that. And if you want to submit pictures of your own mocks to us, we have an email listed in the description below as well. And once again, I would just like to reiterate, builders of all kinds are welcome. This isn't like a skill level thing. This is totally just to promote general LEGO building, and hopefully this can be a fun outlet for people to show off a creation that they're particularly proud of. All right, that is it for this episode, everybody. Thanks a lot for watching. Remember, if you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.